Hi, I'm Margaret Hall, the Executive Director of the Autistic Theatremakers Alliance, and I am thrilled to be here today with How to Dance in Ohio's Caesar Samayoa and Dr. Emilio Amigo, whose story is portrayed in How to Dance in Ohio. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so appreciated.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here.
Yeah, this has been quite a roller coaster for both of you, I know. What has the experience of this show been like for you as someone inside the circle?
Wow. I think for me, it's just been really world expanding. We work at Amigo Family Counseling, and we're working with our clients and the whole community. And over the years, the outreach, the family, La Familia, all the Amigos has just expanded to this beautiful company here in New York City and on Broadway. So it just like, we are who we are, but now we've just spread our wings and had the most beautiful people join, the story and the movement, if you will. So it's just been an honor. It really has.
It's been incredible. I agree 100%. For me, I can explain it. It feels like doors have been constantly been opened through this entire process. Doors that I didn't even know were closed before. From the first day of rehearsal, how our company was treated, what was expected from our company, how we were treating each other, and what was expected of us within our community, to our audience members, people's eyes really being opened to accessibility, to representation, and what that really means and what that demands of each of us. So it's been a wonderful, I keep on saying that the door has been cracked open with this show, and we hopefully will burst it open as the years go on, but it's been quite a privilege to be a part of that.
Right.
When Alexander first filmed the documentary a decade ago, could you have ever dreamed that this is where it would have taken you?
Not for 1 second. Not for 1 second. I thought maybe a sitcom because we got a lot of material. And I thought, well, that sounds like that could be a funny story, but nobody took me seriously at the time. So I just said, forget about it. I'm happy with the documentary. And then, then they approached me and said, Hal Prince is thinking about, doing a musical about it. And I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. And then they came out and we had a reception for all of them. And they shared the vision and their purpose and the design of how they were going to do it. And my clients were there, and we picked their brains, literally. And it just started being our new reality, our new normal.
Were you a musical theater fan before the show?
I wouldn't say a fan. I probably didn't appreciate it as much as I certainly do now. We really didn't get to New York very often when I was growing up. And then local theater, I think I really enjoyed local theater, but never had the big picture of Broadway and all of that. That was something that was just a little bit outside of my horizon, but quickly became something I've fallen in love with. Yeah.
And what number of Broadway show is this for you, Caesar?
This is number 5 for me.
5, okay, yeah. So what was it about this experience that makes it different from the other 4?
Wow, this actually, in an unbelievable way, crossed my path when Hal Prince was still involved with it. And Rebecca reached out and said, I'm working on this new project. I think this role may fit you. The role's called Dr. Amigo. I had not seen the documentary. And I was away developing a show called Come From Away, which was my last Broadway show. And so I wasn't able to do it. And then all these years later, I was working with Sammy, who's our director now. And this role opened up for Broadway. And I went to see the documentary. And I just remember that moment. I said, I have to find a way to do this. I was so inspired by the entire documentary and with you, Dr. Amigo. And it's a little surreal to me that I'm sitting next to you and that I get to say, that I get to portray you on stage and parts of this story on stage. And I'm always wondering, what does it feel like hearing like someone singing, being you on stage?
Well, I've always wanted to be handsome and talented, and I've always wanted to sing. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an artist. My dad said, "No, you'll starve to death. You cannot do that." So I'm like, "Oh, I could have, I should have," but you're living my dream. You're living my dream.
You do have that incredible line in the show about sort of what parents go through so their children can achieve to eventually reach the comfort of artistry.
You'll catch up. It's like your abuelo said, the first generation works the tough jobs so their kids can be doctors, so their kids can be artists.
Was that taken from your life?
You might say so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What was your relationship to autism and the autistic community before this show?
Well, when I was younger, I was in a performing arts center in New Jersey, and we had a whole group. And about half of the performers in the group were autistic. And I was a teaching assistant in it. So I was able to perform on stage and be an assistant in productions where half the cast was autistic. And I never knew that there was this thread in my life that would kind of lead me here to How to Dance in Ohio. So I had a beautiful kind of experience throughout my life within the community. And this felt like such a beautiful kind of connection of everything that I was doing before. And then to really open my mind and really understand what our community is about.
And if I could just share this, it's almost like one of those multiverse things where there's another universe, but it's a different form of this one. In our counseling center, we have created for many years now an acting workshop program where actually Ashley, my adult daughter, she is the director of the acting workshop. So she went from being a group aide, which is represented in the play, to director of our acting workshop. And so we'll 2 or 3 times a year do a theater production, and it's really an anxiety reduction program. So we have counselors working alongside her. But so that was, you were asking me earlier about theater and Broadway and stuff. We've really had theater be a part of our treatment program. That's very unusual. So it's kind of all coming back together that we've used theater as part of our brand, and here we have theater being a platform to share our brand with the world, and so I think that's really cool. That's like, I don't know how you could script that reality.
No.
It really is remarkable, and one of the tenets of our organization is that autistic theater makers always have and always will be here.
Right.
We just haven't necessarily been talking about it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, for those that might not be aware, I have known you since I was like 2 years old.
Yeah, that was.
And I'm now sort of working here in the American theater. I am myself an autistic individual, as is everyone who runs Autistic Theatremakers Alliance.
That's so beautiful.
But for so much of our lives, we were taught that we should just not talk about it. It was almost treated like a large secret of like, yeah, this is who you are, but maybe you just don't reveal it.
Right.
Because if they know, then they won't think you're capable. And so much of this show is about really breaking down the idea that we are somehow less than, but also the idea that somehow autistic people are just here to be inspiration for neurotypical people.
Right.
As 2 people that are neurotypical, what has it been like for you to watch that sort of core 7 rise up to their Broadway debuts and really just present themselves to the world proudly?
Oh my goodness. Well, for me, they're my kids, you know? I mean, the whole father thing that I've got as far as my person and my being, I mean, I've just watched them grow. And what they've carried so much on their shoulders. And just as individuals, for anybody, like I think they are great examples of just being courageous and strong human beings, you know, autistic or not autistic. They are just role models for all of us, including me. So I couldn't be more proud of them. I just love them to pieces. When I'm in the theater, one of the first few rows, I mean, like I'm crying, I'm winking at them. I'm probably disrupting the whole flow of the production, you know, but then they'll wink back at me, and you know what I mean? It's just like, oh man, it's just beautiful. I just absolutely love it. So I care about each one of them just as much as I could possibly care. So it's really neat.
I mean, there's nothing like watching your fellow human beings step into their strength, right? And step into their own power. And I certainly do not want to speak for any one of my, company members, but I do want to share that we were told for so much of some of our actors' lives, they had to hide who they were. And here we were in a room where they were not only encouraged to be who they were and show every part of their personality and their life, but we were going to celebrate that. And the moment you allowed this to happen, for people to really step into the truest versions of themselves, like, look what happened. Look what happened. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people are now being viscerally moved by it, by taking all that pretense away that you were talking about.
Right. And I was going to add too, they won me over right at the very beginning of the Syracuse performances. After the opening night there, I had the privilege of interviewing the Spectrum 7, and I had about 100 questions that I brought from my clients.
Nice.
And they, first of all, it was an open invitation, so I didn't know if one of them might come or two. All of them came, and they just sat in this little semicircle, and I was like, okay, let's go for it. And then Sammy and Ben are like, can we film this? This is good. I'm like, okay, sure, I think, let's do it. And one by one, I just asked these questions and asked these questions, and they were so open, so transparent, so inspiring, so vulnerable, that's when we just kind of like, I think we just love each other, and we're just going to keep working for each other and believing in each other. So I think that really cemented our relationship.
Yeah.
For sure.
What has surprised you about seeing yourself on stage?
Oh gosh, let's see. I know we've talked about this, that I saw some confirmation that, it's okay to be a human being and be a psychologist and be vulnerable and be a leader by being, your true self and modeling that. And Caesar does such a phenomenal job of doing that, using humor. I find that because so many of my clients have anxiety, sometimes crippling at times. We all can be anxious, but to be autistic and anxious, it's just really hard to work through that. And so I take that on head on, and I found that humor, having fun, feeling safe, feeling accepted, and we can just become outrageous and hilarious and absurd and edgy, and it just bonds us. And so I've seen that transferred on stage. And the other thing I loved was you reminded me of how you can't work with a group and let the group know that you care unless you care about each individual. And you have a great way of even the nonverbal moments where you can tell you're caring about this character and that character and that character, and then you're the Dr. Amigo and you're trying to rally them all together. But you couldn't do that unless you had a strong relationship with each person, and it's kind of crazy making for me, because I can be different for you than I am for you or you, but I'm still the same person. It's just a different part of me, if you will. And so not everybody can do that.
Thank you for saying that.
I saw that reflected. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to keep my day job. I think I'm pretty good,
Columbus
seems to be working,
Yeah.
If I may share, we were in this room when I Zoomed with Dr. Amigo for the first time. And he, I had just started with the production, and I was trying to find my way into the character, and you shared with me about humor and how important it is.
Right.
And how it does help ease anxiety so real work can be done after it. And for me, it was like, oh my gosh, that's the way in. That's the way in. I have the moment I can fill this character in this room with as much humor and light and love the way I perceive you to be, Dr. Amigo, was the moment that I felt like I understood the character. So that very much meant a lot to me for you to share that.
Thank you very much.
What is your favorite moment within the show that doesn't center on you and Ashley?
The one that really, really gets to me, and many do, but the one that comes to mind right now is when Meredith's father is trying to convince Meredith to go to the dance, and he's vulnerable, and he shares about, hey, I don't like dances either, and I miss your mom, and she was a social one, and it just brings tears to me of joy, because I remember from the documentary that afternoon before the dance, the Meredith in real life did not want to come. She was convinced, I'm just going to stay home, stay in my computer. And her mom was able to convince her, no, I think you want to go, don't you? And she did. And then a few hours later, in the midst of the dance floor, towards the end of the real Amigo Spring Formal, Meredith's dancing, and she says, I'm having the time of my life. I mean, that's legit, that's real, that really happened. And I've never forgotten that life lesson. It's like, sometimes we're just this far away from having the time of our life, but you've got to make that decision. You've got to go in that direction. And she came this close to not having the time of her life. Yeah. And so that's one of my personal charges, is I want every client of mine to have the time of their life, and not just once, but again and again and again. And that moves me every time. It really does.
I'm going to piggyback off of what you're saying, because for me, it's also the last moments of the show. When I see Drew and Meredith finally connecting at the end, and I know it's a beautiful, heartfelt moment, and we are all on stage, but it is a very private moment between two people. And for me, it shows these human beings finally, after an entire show of trying to connect with each other, fully connecting with each other and taking that first step for what may come ahead. Right. And it's hard for me not to watch it, even though I'm not supposed to watch it. Right. But for me, it's just a beautiful, beautiful moment, and kind of what our show is about finally taking that step.
Right. I think that was one of the most romantic moments I've ever seen in a movie or on stage. Yes. And it was, and because it was pure, it was innocent, it was so real, and we all had that moment of oh my gosh, you like me, I like you. And it doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't. Right? So it was a beautiful way of ending the show. It was great.
I will never forget the first Broadway preview when Liam as Drew goes down and he goes to tie the shoe, and just the echo of ahs and gasp and just everything through the theater. It was such a beautiful moment.
It is. And we feel it on stage. People don't necessarily know that we feel all of that. It's almost like a force that you feel on stage hitting you at that moment. And it's pretty visceral to feel that emotion, being transferred onto you when you're doing a performance.
Right.
And that first preview performance, man, how much energy did you have to be channeling coming from the audience?
Wow.
I think it was over a minute for the cheering before the show could even really begin, just when the Spectrum 7 came out.
Yeah.
Have you been working with the Spectrum 7, you and the other sort of Broadway vets that are within the company, to help them figure out the processing for it, or are they sort of on their feet on their own in terms of handling the fans and the attention that comes with Broadway?
We very much help each other, because we all try to help the Spectrum 7 as much as possible, and kind of help prep for what, the firsts that are happening in this industry, which can be a lot for anybody, but they're also helping me to remember and cherish, gosh, this is a huge deal, and oh my gosh, I remember my Broadway debut, and I remember what it feels like leaving a stage door, and this is not an everyday thing. It should be celebrated, and we should be filled with gratitude every single moment that we get to do it. That's why I'm cherishing these last 4 performances that we have, because it is a gift, and I get to see it through their eyes, what a huge gift this is. But we are definitely helping each other.
Yeah. Now the show has a cast recording. It's been recorded for the Theater on Film and Tape Archive at the New York Public Library of the Performing Arts. Pieces of the show are going to live on forever for audiences. No matter what goes from here, this production, as it stands right now, will remain. Yeah. What do you think the value is in that?
Priceless. one of my favorite stops the last few times I've come to see the play was going to the Museum of Broadway. And I saw the placard or the all the signage about How to Dance in Ohio in one of the rooms with all the other current productions. But then I thought to myself, what they're missing is a room dedicated to neurodiversity on Broadway. And I thought, once they figured that out, that's the next room they need to develop, that How to Dance in Ohio will be featured. It's just one of the beginnings of that. And that's unbelievable. That is just unbelievable. Like what's going to happen 10, 20 years from now because of the work that Caesar and the whole company has done. It's changing lives. It really is.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, my hope, I think we talked about this before, is that we'll be able to trace our production back as one of the moments that the door really cracked open for neurodiversity reprepresentation throughout the entire entertainment industry, not just on Broadway.
Right.
And I couldn't ask for anything more if that's what happens.
If I could just throw just a thought in, as I'm trying to understand, theater and in terms of autistic representation and experience and stuff. And one thing I kept reading about was the traditional stage, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that actors were called upon to find a point of neutrality, like to take away anything that would be uniquely them and take on the role, whatever it would be. Like that's what we, directors, producers were craving. And now we're maybe realizing, bring your authentic self and no longer neutral, but still represent the character and the role and stuff. And so to me, it's like the beginning, it's a revolution in how we portray humanity and that everybody can now be more of who they genuinely are. And it would be like asking someone, who's blind, who can do a part, can you just not be blind for this part? Because we really don't want this character to be blind, but it's like, why not? Or if you're deaf, you can still be the character. But so we see it more when it's visible, but the invisible disabilities and stuff, we've not been appreciated. So I think it makes for better representation, better theater. It's more believable,
Very much agreed. I have always loved that in the song Building Momentum, the lyric goes, building momentum, the very beginning. Because I think that really is where we are. So much has changed in the world for autistic people, even just within my lifetime of 26 years. I can't even imagine what things are going to look like a quarter from the century. And where we are right now, I truly believe is the precipice. So thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me and for making this beautiful show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in.